Here's the barrels aging.
Yeah.
Oh, cobwebs up there.
They have dates on them and names and what tenement.
It goes up high.
Cobwebs up there even.
Okay. A lot of people ask me, Aggie, explain the difference between bourbon and whiskey. Well, before I explain, I always ask them, bourbon, is it an adjective or noun? Don't you hate a question with a question?
Noun.
Noun? Sounds pretty confident. You want to go with him? Everyone thinks it's a noun. Raise your hand. Adjective. All bourbon is whiskey, but not all whiskey is bourbon. So it is an adjective. In order to call yourself bourbon whiskey, you have to follow some federal guidelines. They were enacted in 1964 to recognize products strictly made in America. So that's your first guideline, American made. A lot of people think it's Kentucky because of the limestone bed. More than 95% is made in Kentucky, but it's just America. Number two, you have to age your whiskey in a brand new white oak barrel that's been charred. It has to be brand new, 4 degrees of charring. Ours is roughly 2 3/4. To call it straight, you have to age it for at least 2 years. We're going to age ours for at least 5 3/4. I'll tell you a little bit more how we do that in just a second. An extra thing we do here at Makers is when the cooper makes the barrels, cuts the staves, we ask that those staves are laid out in the weather for 9 months. Has to include 1 summer. What this is going to do, it's going to bleach tannins out. You folks, any of you know what tannins are? Who said that?
Wine drinker.
Wine, yeah, usually makers or drinkers know. Wine makers or drinkers. It's the bitters in the wood. Those bitters you pick up on the sides of your tongue, it would overpower our delicate wheat, because you only want to pick our bourbon up at the tip of your tongue, okay? So you don't want the tannins, they're going to be bleached out. It'll also break the fiber in the wood down by laying it out in the weather, allows the whiskey to penetrate deep into the wood, picking up the nice vanilla flavoring of the wood, also the caramel from the charring of the sap in the wood. So there you go. Next thing, you have to have at least 51% corn in your recipe. I know it was cold when I told you, but do you remember how much corn we use in our recipes? 70. Yeah, you're right. You were listening. Next one, you cannot distill any greater than 160 proof or put in the barrel any greater than 125 proof. Here at Makers, our highest distillation is 130. It's the lowest in the industry. We put it in the barrel at 110 proof. During the aging process, that's going to rise roughly 114. If you're wondering how they change proof, demineralized water. Last one, you cannot do anything artificial, change taste or color. You do all this, bourbon whiskey. If not, you're just whiskey.